Yeah, welcome everybody to our Berlin stand and to our last panel for today here at our Berlin exhibition stand at the MIPIM 2024. I am really excited about this panel now, and it is a very special panel. So please enjoy and come closer and listen to our three guests regarding the topic Berlin, Paris, Budapest, Mastering the Growth of Cities and International Perspective. So here at our Berlin exhibition stand is the next panel going on, and this one is quite a special. I can present our guests today, and I'm very delighted to welcome Noah Steinberg. He is chairman and CEO of the Ring Group for Budapest, chairman of the supervisory boards of Eco Investment in Poland, and also Bauwert AG in Germany. I'm also very delighted to welcome Madame Sevinç Chimot. She is head and expert of smart cities and clean tech from Choose Paris region. And last but not least, I'm very delighted to welcome Christian Gaebler. He is the Senator of Urban Development, Building and Housing from Berlin. Welcome. This panel will be in English, so I hope you're fine with this. And I will start with a little heretical view on growing cities. Our cities are growing, and then a dystopian portrayal of urban growth could include a variety of disturbing elements emphasizing the negative impacts of this expansion on society, housing, architecture, our cultural heritage, the environment, and also the individual well-being. Here are just some possible features of such a dystopian world. Overcrowded cities will lead to a shortage of housing, food, water, and other vital resources. The infrastructure is overwhelmed, and there are constant shortages and distribution struggles. The air is thick with smog and pollutants, the waters are contaminated, and natural ecosystems in and around the cities are nearly destroyed. Despite the apparent wealth of a few groups, many residents suffer from poverty, homelessness, and social exclusions. To maintain order in the crowded and chaotic cities, comprehensive control systems are needed. Despite the large population density, people in cities feel lonely and isolated. And finally, high level of air pollution, lack of green spaces, and chronic stress level led to widespread health issues, including respiratory diseases, mental disorders, and chronic illnesses. I really need to stop here because it hurts just from talking about it. And I'm also sure this is not the vision you have in mind for the three cities we have in focus today. And surely it might be a little extreme anyways. So what would you say on the broad view are the main challenges of European cities to master their growth? Whoever feels free to start.
Hello. Yes, it's working. Thank you, Christine, for welcoming Choose Paris region here. Let me introduce you about the Paris region government, who we are, and what is our characteristic and what is our challenges. Okay. So we are almost 13 million of inhabitants in the territory, and each year we are receiving 50 million additional inhabitants in this territory. So the Paris region is the most densely populated area of France, and we are facing, of course, numerous challenges, as you said just before. So it will be first about infrastructure challenge, not only for our citizens, but we are also a tourism places where we receive more than 50 million of tourists each year. It will be also challenges about housing, which will be very important because we have to renew our housing parks for all these additional inhabitants that is arriving every year. And we also have to provide affordable houses, because we don't only have white collar, we also have blue collar, and we have to make possible for all these people to live all together. So, yes, territorial and social fractures is there, and we have to handle it, and I will explain later how we're going to work on that. There is economic challenges also for Paris region, because as you can imagine, we are a capital territory, and as a capital territory, we have to maintain our economic leaderships. And lastly, the thing is that there is a radical transformation of the Paris region citizen aspiration. Today, the citizens in Paris region want to live differently and want to work differently and want to travel differently. And as a political government, we have to design the city according to the citizen requirements. So he wants clean air, he wants to breathe, he wants to let the children run in the park, and he don't want noise, he don't want the pollution, and we have to make it possible for these citizens. Climate requirements. This is written by the European Union, but it's also at the French level regulatory framework. We have the objectives, and we have customized all these objectives according to our specificity and characteristics. I will stop here, and I will come later on. But it's a nice place to be, and it's a nice place to live. I invite all of you to come.
Thank you. So, Mr. Steinberg, Mr. Gaebler, can you add?
Bonjour, guten Tag. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. I have the good fortune to work in both Budapest and Berlin, as well as in 8 cities in Poland. And as the leader of a private real estate developer and investor, what we really see is that there has to be a focus on livability. People want to work in an environment and live in an environment which supports their everyday life, which enhances the quality of the interactions they have with their family, with their colleagues, with their friends. They have to be able to access their workplaces and their homes, and they have to do so in a sustainable way. And if I think the vision of dystopia, which you painted a little bit, Kristen, was probably worse 30 years ago than it is now. If you look today at the interaction between the public authorities and private individuals and private investment companies, what you see is everybody has understood that if we just rush headlong into a dystopia with unsustainable buildings, with bad public transport networks, with zoning that doesn't create livable and walkable spaces, then we don't have a good future to look forward to. If we take into account the needs of the community, if we take into account the needs of the public sector, and if we take into account that the private sector will respond and invest where there are opportunities to provide a service where they can also make money, then at the end of the day, what you're likely to see is development which meets the needs of the future. And I think that's what we're really focused on. And we have in these 3 cities, cities that have very, very real urban challenges, but also extraordinary energy and potential in their populations, first and foremost. And the more that can be enhanced, the more likely you are to see, I think, a future which looks bright, not dark.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to be with you in this panel with 3 big cities in Europe, or a region with a big city and suburbs. I think we have the same problems or the same challenges with growing population. Our population is growing as well. Last year there were 70,000 people coming to Berlin, additional to the other people, so we are near the 4 million inhabitants. I know Paris region is more, but if we look on the city of Paris, we can say the city of Paris is like our inner city, with where about 1.2 million people are living, and we have our own suburbs inside the city borders. So it's a bit different from Paris, because we have to look after our own reserves for new housing, and we are working on our developing plan for housing with a vision to 2040, and see there a need of 220,000 flats to build, and we have potentials for about 250,000. So not every potential is will be realized, but so we think we can try to build this inside our city borders. But as you said, have to be livable quarters, not only sleeping quarters or, as you say in German, Schlafstätte, but to have livable quarters with social infrastructure, with cultural infrastructure, and with parks. And so we have, of course, conflicts about land use and the use of new land for buildings. I think the important thing is to say we want that everyone in our city have his home place, and therefore it's necessary to have a home place with good infrastructure, with good neighborhoods, and with stable neighborhoods also, what means social balancing. And I think this is really the challenge, social balancing and land use.
Thank you. So overall, while each of these cities has experienced growth in different ways, they all share common challenges related to urbanization, housing affordability, transportation, environmental sustainability, and also social inclusion, as you said. And yeah, let's more talk about the solution aspect than the problem aspect, maybe. Effective urban planning and governance are essential to addressing these challenges. And yesterday we already had an exciting panel on the urban development of Berlin with a view on the high-rise buildings that are developing here and old industrial buildings. So, Mr. Steinberg, how does Budapest deal with protecting and developing its very special urban heritage, and as the city grows and also more housing is needed?
I think Budapest has very special characteristics for several reasons. One is that you have an extraordinary architectural heritage which is several hundred years old. The other is that you have the heritage of decades of communism where industrial buildings were built that are not attractive or in fact even functional today in the way they were originally conceived. One of the things that we as a company have been very focused on is giving older buildings new life. So creating a building whose function is no longer relevant and turning it into something else, preserving the pieces of the architectural heritage which represent value, while at the same time creating new environments which are attractive, again, for the people who use them. If we look at my office in Budapest, it's an old market hall, which we've reconfigured as an office space. But if we look at one of our flagship properties in Warsaw, which is the Warsaw Breweries, we've created a destination which has a fantastic food and beverage and nightlife character in the cellars that are the old brewery cellars, while above it we've created a terrific public space as well as offices and residential. And I think that's the key, one of the keys to how you manage this. You take the existing space in historical cities and you convert it to a new use which is relevant today. The second piece, I think, is that Budapest, and this is true for us as private developers and investors, and it's true in all of the cities we're discussing, if you have a strict regime of protecting environmental heritage, architectural heritage and functions, if you have monument protection, real estate developers and investors will work towards that. So we receive certain restrictions which we know come from the public interest. And that's also true for public transport networks. We respond to what's put there and to zoning. But within that context, we're not enemies, we're not opponents in that at all. It's a cooperative venture to say, what can we develop, what makes sense for the needs of the city and the people in it, and how can we work within the confines of protecting old buildings, using the existing public transportation networks, paying attention to environmental sustainability as well as to environmental protection, and at the same time creating value. And I think that's the real challenge, is to do that in partnership and to do it in a way that makes sense for all the stakeholders.
And Berlin has faced challenges related to housing affordability and availability. You described that very well beforehand. With a growing demand for housing leading to rising rents and house shortages, in certain neighborhoods. Mr. Gaebler, which are the strategies and solutions in Berlin the Senate is addressing to this?
At first, in Berlin we have a lot of city-owned flats. We have about nearly 400,000 flats owned by the city and 6 companies. And we have, this is 20%, about 20% of all housing in Berlin. So we have the instruments to influence the market and also to look after social housing as well. We have an alliance for housing development and affordable housing with private companies as well. And in this alliance, there are over 50% of the housing in Berlin together discussing about how we can handle this with a social balance and not only to think about profit. Since for 10 years now, we have a funding program for public housing to ensure a sufficient share of rental apartments for low and middle incomes. And within this program, rents are staged between 7 and euro and 11 euro 50. It depends a bit on your income in 3 stages. And this binding is for a period for 30 years. And we fund this was about 1.5 billion euros per annum. And so we think we will provide fund for create 5,000 public housing units per year, which are in this range I said already.
Thank you. Paris may have been the first of the 3 cities that has faced housing affordability problems, and now the focus of the growing city seems to be more on the transportation aspects, at least from my point of view here in Berlin. How do you react to the aspects of a growing city regarding the transportation plans?
Before answering to the transportation plans that we have, and which is huge, which is called Grand Paris Express, I would like to explain you the master plan of Paris region and why we construct this Grand Paris Express. So the master plan is designing the future of Paris region for 2014, and it will be very important. It is based on 3 pillars. And the first one is controlling urban development. We have the zero artificialisation net policy that we are not working about urban renewable. Within that, we put a huge effort on the quality of life of our citizens. And this would be about urban development and mixed use, which is very important. I will come to the Grand Paris Express just after, because everything is linked. And another point will be to promote a region that is balanced. Today, you said Paris is Paris Inner, a city of 2 million inhabitants. You have all the historical centers, all the Haussmannian buildings, and many things is concentrated in Paris. After, you're going to have the west part, the east part, all the suburbs around, the Metropolis, which will be 7.5 million inhabitants, and as a government of Paris region, what we are looking for is the equilibrium of the territory. We cannot make the West rich and the East poor. It's not possible. And just before I speak also about the aspiration of the Paris region citizens, they want to live close to their house. They want to live close to their work. They also want to have services. They want to have all these services that the city can provide. So behind, yes, there is a 50 minutes concept city, and we design the Grand Paris Express, which will be, which arrive very soon, because it should be ready for the Olympic Games in 2024, most of it. It will be 200 kilometers of lines around the city of Paris. So it will not go inner, it will be all completely around. And it will have 27 centralities. That will be, and that will be able to answer to the needs of our citizens. So thanks to this new infrastructure, we want to provide to 95% of our citizens, they will be able to live near at 2 kilometers of a train stations. So what we want with the Grand Paris Express is that it will reshape also the real estate history of Paris region. So we want also have a next step in the construction, and around all this train station, we're also trying to have new architectural iconic buildings that will give this new shape to our territory. So yes. But this is just one part of the master plan. The last part, in the growing city, what we're going to give a lot of importance for health of our citizens will be to preserve the biodiversity, because it's very important, first, for the mental health of our citizens, and second, we need to refresh Paris, because it's starting to be very hot also in the summer, and for you it will be very interesting in 2040 to have assets in Paris, because we try to preserve such kind of our territory.
Thank you. Mr. Steinberg, in the past, Budapest growth has been moderate in comparison to the growth of those two cities. If you hear how Berlin and Paris are dealing with those challenges, what would you say could be the next step for the development of Budapest?
Well, I think the first thing, right, to remember is, from our point of view as a real estate developer, a shortage of housing is an opportunity. Right? We look at that and say, terrific, we would like to build apartments for those people. And if you look, for instance, at the structure in Berlin, as Senator Gaebler mentioned, you have a history of the city looking out for its citizens in the context of residential development, which is a very, very positive, and it's very different from most other German cities in that regard. And it allows, I think, a much more open dialogue and a much more open interchange of ideas than in many other markets, which is a healthy thing, because it means that the focus stays on the residents as it should be. Budapest obviously has a different history and a different story in terms of that growth, because it's less of a magnet from an international perspective, and nonetheless what we've seen is a very strong growth in two ways. One is the actual population growth of the city, but the second, and this is also true in the eastern parts of Berlin, is that the housing stock that existed previously before 1990 no longer meets the needs of the way people want to live today. They're big concrete prefabricated blocks which don't have appropriate green spaces, which don't have services around them, and which were designed to last for 50 years. Most of them are already 50 years old, so it's a challenge. And I think in that regard, what we see is the ability to provide the types of buildings where people for residential purposes want to be is what works. The government programs are one side of it. The other, which we have a very strong focus on, is creating environmentally efficient buildings, which is good for the environment, of course, but it's also good for the person living there, because their gas bill and their electricity bill and their heating bill and their water bill will be cheaper. And that's something people understand. So you can tell them this building has a green certificate and they'll love it. But if you say your heating bill will be half as much next winter, they'll love it more. And so if you can combine those two things, then you can, I think, meet the needs in a way that, again, is market-driven on the one side and meets requirements on the other.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. With the running time in our backs, and also as an ending to the story of the three growing cities, I just have a little flashlight round for the three of you. So a quick answer to the question: is there a way potential investors can help healing the city's growing pains? Who wants to start?
Yes, I think so. If they have also the view of an integrated concept, not only one point, but to say, okay, I want to have a livable quarter, like our new urban neighborhoods we are developing. This also was private investors, not only was public, but to say, I have an idea, but I look also for the city's needs, and then we bring this together for really mixed quarter, not only only offices, only housing. Like you said, people want to have this together and to look where is infrastructure we can use and how can we build more dense, but also with free spaces around. So we have a good balance of the topics we discussed already.
I believe that investors have somehow the same objective as the public entities, such because you are trying to provide sustainable housing, you are trying to comply with the environmental law, and we do also have some objectives for in our master plan for 2030, 2040, and sometimes I believe that we should talk further all together, because at the end we're gonna do the same thing, and where I see the wellness of my citizens, sometimes you see only the price of the asset. Both are important because the price of the asset is very important in Paris. We need to keep this leadership, and it's just I'm still trying to talk to my investors in Paris.
Mr. Steinberg, your perspective.
We're here, right? I mean, that's why we're here, and that's what we want to do. And I think our corporate philosophy is that we create value through our work, and that value creation is not only financial; it's also architectural, and it's from the point of view of the end users. So we create a functional value, and that functional value will probably outlive us. Right? So the buildings we create, we have a responsibility, I think, to the cities that we work in to create buildings which are long-term viable structures in every way. And the most important piece of that, I think, is that they serve the function that they are designed to meet in a sustainable way. So we really look forward to the opportunities coming, and I think that the whole discussion and the whole dialogue around how that should look is a very positive one, because what it does is it provides guidelines and signposts to allow us to see in which direction the next steps should go. And if we can do that in dialogue with the regions and with the city governments, even better, because the financial pieces will fall into place next to that.
Thank you. Thank you, the three of you, in total. I had a lot of fun, and I took many informations with me, and I'm also excited to visit you on your stands around the MIPIM. So also a special thank you to Budapest and Paris, which you two stand for, from Berlin. And I think Mr. Gaebler wants to take this thank you note over. And yeah, there's a little present for the two of you.
Yes, really a big thank you for you coming to our stand and give us a view about your challenges and your measures against it. So I'll give you a view of Berlin.
Thank you very much.
Because we have a long history of improvisation over the years. And so thank you very much and have a good time on the MIPIM.
Thank you.